First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. As always, appreciate you being here, whatever platform you're watching on, whether that's our apps, our website, or our social media channels. Thanks for being here. You can always leave a comment, watch later, share the show, all of that stuff. And right now, since we're starting off the show, we're going to talk about what's on everybody's mind, especially if you're here in the Northwest and in the Portland area. It is very, very hot out. If you're like me, you don't have central air. I don't. I chose not to get that a long time ago, and I regret that every year when summer comes around. And so I didn't get a ton of sleep last night, but that's all right. I was able to stay cool because I've got a little bit of a window air conditioning unit. However, a lot of people don't, and there's a lot of things that, you know, are obviously concerning when it comes to the heat, and there are a lot of ways to stay cool. To talk about all of that right now, we are joined by two experts who are going to be telling us all about this. And let me just make sure that I've got your titles here pulled up because they are, let me say, impressive titles. We've got Sarah Dean, who's the Health Communications Coordinator and Spokesperson for Multnomah County. Is that correct? Okay, that was good. All right, and we've got Rachel Pearl, who is the Deputy Director of the county's Department of County Human Services. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Sorry, they're so long, I just wanted to make sure that I got those in there because obviously you two know what you're talking about. And that's why I appreciate both of you being here today to walk through some of these things that are available for everyone, because there's some real serious concerns that come with heat like this. Clearly, we're not normally equipped for something like that. We're not used to that, just being in the Northwest. And so there's a lot of things that I know Multnomah County is doing to help counteract that and provide some safe options. And that includes an entire website that's devoted to that. And that's what I wanted to showcase here was this website that Multnomah County has for help for when it's hot. There's a lot of things to go through on this, and that's why we have you two that are joining us. So I figured I'll hand it over to you, and maybe we'll start off with this of just what some of the major concerns are when we have heat like this.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I think obviously the major concerns are folks getting impacted by heat, heat illness or heat stroke. And so we're really concerned about folks making sure that they can get cool. Heat's a little different than the cold, so it's cumulative. So the more time that someone's exposed to those hot hours of the day, which are really from 2 to 7, we're seeing those high temps. Really making sure that folks are staying hydrated, that they're getting inside as much as possible, that they're able to get a break from the heat. If you're not able to stay inside, making sure you're getting in the shade, you're staying hydrated, you're making sure you're, drinking things that might, have a salty snack or like a sports drink to get those electrolytes back in your body. So you're really making sure you're paying attention to how you're feeling. I think we're concerned if someone starts to feel dizzy or they're starting to feel nauseous or, starting to perhaps vomit, or feel weak. We want them to recognize those as warning signs that's an immediate sign to get inside and get cool, to get hydrated. So perhaps take a colder shower, perhaps, sponge bath, get your body temp down as soon as possible, and if those symptoms get worse and folks are seeing things that ultimately show up almost like neurological symptoms, like a really severe headache, even like a convulsion, where you're calling 911 at that point in time, you have a medical emergency. So we're really wanting people to pay attention and make sure that they're taking care of themselves and each other. We're really concerned about folks that are living alone too, so looking out for those folks as well.
Right, somebody living alone who may not even realize they're going through some of those symptoms, and then before it's too late, obviously. So this is something I wanted to bring up here. This is all through that website that I mentioned, and I'll put that website up there so people can go through and take a look at that. So this is talking about some of the symptoms. So heavy sweating, we've got dizziness or feeling faint, weakness or muscle cramps, clammy or pale skin, nausea, vomiting, so that's definitely bad, rapid heartbeat, and shallow or rapid breathing. So those are all things that if you're experiencing some of those, what would be the first thing that you should do if you are experiencing one of those things out in the heat?
Yeah, I think, the website is great. It gives a lot of specific information. So please, follow up there. But, removing excess clothing, I think, it says resting in a cool area as soon as possible, getting yourself out of the heat, drinking plenty of fluids and, making sure some of that is replenishing that salt in your system, and taking a cold shower or bath or a sponge bath. So just really focusing on cooling down your body's temperature, and making sure that you're getting a break. So again, that's, the fact that heat is cumulative, you can get out of the heat and cool off, as long as you haven't been overexposed and then you've moved into a heat stroke, which is definitely a medical emergency. And we'd want you to get medical attention at that point.
And how long does that normally take for something like that to happen if you're out in the heat? I suppose there's probably a myriad factors that go into that, but is there a general idea of being out in the sun like this, say when it's 103 or whatever it's going to be to get today?
Yeah, I think it's really different for every individual, and there's folks that are far more vulnerable to heat than others. So our children and elderly folks are much more vulnerable to heat. If you have any underlying conditions that might make you more susceptible to, heat illness or heat stroke. So really pay attention to your body, yourself, what you feel like on a regular day. If something feels off, pay attention to that and make a change.
Okay, that's great advice on what to do there. So any other? Let's kind of go on from there, I guess, and I'll let you lead if you have another suggestion on where to go. But talking about, things for people who are at home, and staying cool in that aspect. If you don't have central air conditioning, are there any kind of tips or tricks to that as far as what to do? And I know we have worries about the power grid and all of that, but can you walk through what people should do if they're at home and they don't have central air?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off by saying, we have been in touch with, the power, folks, and they're not currently concerned about the power grid. So don't let that be a factor in not turning on your AC. We don't have a current concern, and we'll keep people updated as that changes and as we get more information. But, I think if you have a window unit, keeping it at more of like a higher temp, like 78, and running it, not turning it on and off, because that actually makes it more difficult to cool off the space that you're in. So definitely run those. We air conditioning saves lives, and we know that, and we've learned that, and we really encourage folks to run that if you have it. We want to encourage folks not to let concerns about utility bills interfere with them turning on their air conditioning. And we know that if you get a bill that is difficult for you to pay, call 211, and they can help you navigate what resources are available. So that's really important. And if you don't have air conditioning, I think, first, where there's a lot of spaces throughout the county that I think you're going to show on that map that do have a cool environment for you to be in. And we would encourage you to use those between those hot hours between 2 and 7 in the day. Those are open. Our cooling centers are open from 1 to 8 today. And so we encourage you to get to a space that does have AC during those hot hours. And then, if that's not possible, really covering your windows, making sure, you can use foil, or if you have curtains or shades, pull those down, keep them closed, keep your space dark. If you unplug electronic devices that you're not using, those often generate heat. And so, the less heat that you're generating in your space, the better. And then as long as air quality stays good, being able to open your windows in those hours when the temps drop again to cool off your space is really important as well. So those are some things that we recommend. But really, if transportation is a barrier for you getting to a cooling center, calling 211, we have some transportation options available. So we don't want anyone to have that be a barrier for them getting to a space where they can cool down, because again, it's cumulative. Giving yourself a break from the heat, getting to a cool space, even for a short while, is really going to help prevent any heat illness.
So let's talk about those cooling centers that you just mentioned, because this is another thing that I think is a really interesting feature here on the website. And can you walk through? This is easily accessible, and again, can you give everybody the best website to go to where you can locate all of this?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to get there is moltco.us/hot, and it's our help for when it's hot. If you, so that is the website, and there is that interactive map there that shows the spaces where there's different options available. I think the first thing on there is the cooling centers, and 3 of those are county run. And run by both county staff and also city staff, and then also our providers, Do Good, Multnomah, and Cultivate are facilitating those 3 centers. So that's at Old Town location downtown. There's 2 more out in East County, which is Cook Plaza and our Multnomah County East building. And there you can get cool, get some water, get some snacks and other supplies and services there at those sites. There's also, I believe, a senior center that's open to the public as well. That's listed under our cooling centers out in Gresham. And then I think looking at other spaces, so cooling spaces throughout the county, we know that the Lloyd Center is open today as a space where people can cool off. We know our libraries are open. Most of those locations are open until 8 p.m. tonight. And as long, as supplies are available, we'll also have water for folks. We've been coordinating supplies, getting out to the libraries as well, so folks can not just get cool, but maybe get hydrated as well in those spaces. And then obviously we have, the pools, community pools throughout the county, the city, that people can go to cool off there. There's splash pads, and the city is running some misting stations. I think 14 of those are 24/7. So folks can cool off even when it's late at night in those misting stations as well. It's important to just make sure that if folks are choosing to use, cool off in a river, that we do have some concerns around algae blooms throughout the area, particularly downtown and Salvie Island. So if you are going to use an outdoor water, for cooling off, please make sure it's safe. You can access that information as well on our website. So want to make sure that folks aren't causing a different challenge for themselves as they're trying to cool off.
And
Right.
we have updated maps on our website of where those areas are with algae blooms.
Oh, fantastic. So that's something else that people can go and take a look at and understand, where some of the dangers are with that. And I think actually coming up here a little bit on this show, I had an interview just about that, about the warning signs for that. So we're going to talk some more about the algae blooms as well, because obviously that's a concern because everybody wants to jump in the water. And yeah, if you're adding another danger on top of it, that's not going to be a good thing. Real quick, just looking at this map again, because I do like this idea, you can get a visual idea of where things are, because I feel like, as you mentioned before, checking on people who may be by themselves or maybe, at more danger, at more risk of that, to just even know where these are, to direct people to be able to pull this up on your phone and just say, hey, we're at this cross street, right there's a pool that you can go to, or there's, or whatever else, you have a splash pad, I guess that was a splash pad. So lots of options there, which this is a really valuable tool, I feel like, when it comes
Absolutely.
down to it. Can you, real quick, what is a splash pad?
I think a splash pad is, when they have like kind of water fountains where you can, there's water coming out of the ground, and sometimes it accumulates and then drains, but it's different from a pool. So it's just water that is
Gotcha.
spraying, and, oftentimes you see children playing and running through splash pads at parks throughout the city.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense. I just wanted to double check because I'm like, it sounds interesting. I kind of want to go to one, but yeah, great.
They're lots of fun.
Yeah, they seem to be, and helping people out. So looking at it, from these different standpoints, and going forward, we know it's gonna cool off a little bit, but it's still gonna be really hot for a little while here. What are some things, these are available right now, but going forward, what are some other ways that people can stay cool? Will all of these stay open, or it just kind of depends? Go to the map and find out from that way?
Yeah, I think, our cooling centers are definitely an emergency response to temperatures that are extreme. So this is a severe weather response. So those won't stay open once the severe weather has passed. And we're hoping that this heat wave ends by the end of the week. That's kind of what the forecast is telling us. However, we watch that very closely, as we know weather is constantly changing, and want to make sure that we're making decisions that are best for our community. And beyond that, I think, a lot of those spaces that are available on that map are open all the time. So, we have libraries that are available to folks. There's community centers that are available to folks. So a lot of those spaces, senior centers, they might not have those expanded hours, but they're available when folks are hot throughout the season to cool off. And so just, being aware of that. I think in addition, we do have air conditioning programs that have been active throughout the year. We, in my department, Department of County Human Services, at the county, we distributed 1,000 air conditioning units to folks that were living in apartments who were considered heat vulnerable folks. And so we will continue those programs. And I know there are other programs that are active. So folks are interested. We do encourage them to get an AC unit for their space, and they can call 211 to find out what's available for them if that's something that they need. So we do know that there are several options and resources for folks to activate and get that. And then, just making sure that you stock up on water, making sure if you don't have window coverings, put something in place or have something available so that you can keep your space cool as you're navigating that. Always checking on your neighbors. And, I think if you have an AC, inviting your neighbors to share that space with you. I've heard stories about that. And I think that's lovely. That's wonderful. We should all be building community like that so we can share resources and look out for each other. It's really critical right now as we know that some folks just don't have what they need in this moment. And so we think that's really important. We have a lot of other, we have a pilot project that we started this past year, and there's 55 sensors in home forward apartment buildings throughout the city to really assess apartment temperatures and make sure that we can kind of see what that looks like for apartments that don't have central AC and how hot those apartments are getting, and have the ability to respond and provide resources for folks. So that's something that's a partnership between the county and the city. And Home Forward is the contractor we're working with them to make sure that they respond to those notices when we get them. But 211 is always a resource for folks as things are coming up. If they need support or help and want to know what's available, it's a great resource for everyone to kind of use if they have additional needs or questions.
That's great. So 211, go there. Call that if you have some of these issues or concerns that arise. And I think that's another important thing. You mentioned that you have those sensors in. I think that's going to be a really fascinating study to see how that works and, what those differences are going to be depending on where someone's at and what's going on. I don't know if this is something that covered, but I did want to bring this up just for everybody too, talking about, the different places and how heat can change depending on where you're at. This is actually at KPTV.com, and this is a map that shows some of those different, the different changes depending on where you're at in an urban environment, depending on what some of the things are that are available, whether you have tree coverage, whether it's cement. There's a lot of different factors that kind of vary in there. And this is a resource that we have at kptv.com that people can go and take a look at and see, why some places is hotter than another place, and these urban heat islands that can pop up. I know that's more of a long-term thing to take a look at, but a lot of data right there that I thought was very fascinating to take a look at. And I don't know if that's something that you factor in when you're looking at all of your information, but pretty interesting to see how that works out for the city.
Yeah, we definitely look at that. We try to use that information when we're looking at cooling centers and spaces and where to have spaces available. Obviously there's a lot of factors, including what facilities we have as options and are available to use, but we really want to ensure that we're having space available in areas that are going to be impacted the most by the heat.
Yeah, and actually last month, the county did a regional data collection with Washington County and Clackamas County of where we had volunteer drivers go out and collect data at different times throughout the day on a hot day. And that data will be used to really identify where those urban heat islands are. And we've gathered so much data, and we'll be able to analyze that data in the coming months and then further use that data to help our heat-related response. So using the data to really dial in where those most vulnerable residents of Multnomah County and our neighboring counties as well.
That is really interesting. That's just how that all correlates, and then overlaying that, with where your cooling centers are, what you can do to counteract some of that. That's a lot of information to analyze, and I think that's a great job that you're doing with that as far as this. I mean, just having this available for people to even understand that and really grasp, that those things matter when it comes to figuring out these urban heat islands and where that heat can actually affect somebody a little bit more. pretty interesting just how that all works out. So that's great that you're doing that, and we'll see how that all works out. Anything else that you think people should know about, or just even redirecting them back to the website for more information? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I definitely think if you haven't explored that website, please do. There's a lot of resources available there, information. If you have any questions, many of them might be answered in that space. We are, doing a lot more outreach, really early outreach. As a county, we want to make sure we get the word out. As soon as we see a forecast might be problematic, we really try to start activating and talking to folks and getting the word out. And we've done a lot. We're continuously reflecting and adjusting to make sure that we're best meeting the needs of the residents of this county, and working collaboratively with our partners. And it's, I think we've made tremendous improvements, and we'll continue to do so. And we want you all to, take care of yourselves. And, remember to look out for folks that seem like maybe they're struggling. Drink water, stay cool, take a break. It's really important. And air conditioning does save lives. If you have access to it, please either get to a space that has it or turn it on in your home. And we're concerned, and we're doing all that we can to try to make sure folks are safe.
Well, Rachel and Sarah, thank you very much for joining me and joining us here on Fox 12 Now to talk about this and important information to get out there. And again, for everybody who's watching too, if you already know about some of this or you're in a safe spot, like Rachel said, look out for those who may be struggling, who may need some help. This is a way that you could even get information to them, help them get to someplace that's going to be safe or cool, and important to do that. So thank you very much for taking time to talk to us today. Really, really appreciate both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks a lot. And for those of you watching here, again, this is Fox 12 Now. We're live here every weekday, covering a lot of things. So I will show you, actually, I do have our forecast for our first alert weather day. So this is what we're looking at right now. This is as of probably right before I went on air, so I think it's probably pretty accurate, but looking at around 103 today is the prediction, 99 tomorrow, so still really hot, and then slowly tapering down to what now seems like a nice cool 81 degrees, so that's going to be later on. Predicted anyway for later on. And we always have up-to-date weather at kptv.com. You can always check out everything we've got going on there. We'll keep you on top of that. And Sarah also mentioned the algae blooms. I'm going to be discussing that here in just a few minutes, actually, around 1:30 p.m. So wherever you're watching us, you can come back, take a look at what we're doing. I'll bring up that map that she was mentioning, and we can take a look at that and where these algae blooms are. I also have a great interview that discusses how you can ascertain some of that yourself and what to look out for. So we're going to cover all of that coming up here in just a few. So come right back on whatever platform you are on. I will talk to you then. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.